Hello, everyone. Trish Jenkins here. I'm so excited. We are going live right now with no notice because I have nabbed Tony Ryan, CSP, futurist and expert and all-round brainiac and good guy. And I'm so excited because I saw him on the news. I know him from the speaking circles, and we connected and I said, can you talk to me? And he said, we have to do it now. And I went, right, let's go live now. So the thing that grabbed me is Tony's view on the future is actually, he's a futurist. He's an expert. He studies this stuff. When everyone else is saying the world's going to hell in a handbasket, Tony will tell you that the future is a beautiful mess. So, Tony Ryan, please tell us why the future is a beautiful mess.
Oh, Trish, look, delighted to be with you, and I love your work. That's been an expression of mine for a while. I think the world always has been a beautiful mess, and it always will be. In spite of horrendous things happening at different times, we always manage to get through it. Our humanity shines, and we manage to achieve great things in spite of it. So don't ever give up on things. It's very important to actually keep looking at least for the reasonably optimistic. In fact, can I hint that in terms of resilience with the future, people need to be what we call a realistic optimist. We all fit on a line. We fit on a line psychologically from people who are deeply pessimistic and see the worst in everything to people who think everything is perfect and wonderful. I think we need to be 90% of the way along the line towards the optimism. So don't just believe in everything you hear. Otherwise, people will send you emails and you'll think, wow, great opportunity to send a lot of money to someone in a very poor country. But it doesn't always work that way. You still need to be aware of things that could go wrong. But we need to be realistic optimists. And by the way, I can't predict the future. No one can. Can I point out, though, who would have predicted to some degree what would have happened this year? We know of what are called black swans. They happen every so often, and it's going to keep going on for a little while yet. Can I point out, though, that the future is basically created by the actions we take today? It's pretty well that straightforward, which gives me some concern when I see the mass media sensationalism that's looking for the worst and excesses on the planet all the time and then wanting to promote them to all of us. After a while, people begin to believe that. And in fact, they're only reporting on the worst 1% that happens on the planet each day. Hardly anyone ever promotes someone who gave support to a little old lady walking across a street corner in the traffic. They tend to ignore that stuff. We need to look for the best and actually tell other people about it all the time.
That's brilliant. It's so true. And we watch the news in the morning and it comes on. We might hear the same bad news 5 times, every half hour or so. And it makes it feel like it's actually 5 times as bad.
Mm-hmm. Yep. In fact, Trish, it's so important, especially for children, to become very aware of your own thinking and how it's being changed by things outside you. Too many people are letting other people do their thinking for them. And that means others may even have control over your emotional state, which is not a great thing. We need to actually take control of our own thinking. In fact, for anyone who's a parent out there, I've got a great little idea that can teach children how to do this and teach grown-ups how to do it as well. And I just happen to have this on my desk. This is actually Cookie. It's a toy kookaburra. And I actually teach children to talk to it. So they actually say, hi, Cookie, and then they pretend to have Cookie talk back to them. They can do this with their schoolwork. Adults can do this. I know it'd look a bit silly to do it in the street, but anyway. Yeah. So what you do firstly is you talk out loud to it. A few days later, you don't talk to it, you think to it. And then it thinks back to you. So you can have a 12 or a 30-year-old who's looking at this thing on their finger, and then it suddenly goes like this back to them. A week later, you take it off, but by then you've learned how to have a conversation inside your own head. That is the core to actually changing how we feel about ourselves and the whole world. Take ownership of your own thinking, learn how to modulate that, and then you can start to use great strategies that actually improve how you feel about life. So like a beautiful one is Teflon and Velcro. If you've ever heard of this one before, we need to apply Teflon to bad thoughts and to the bad thoughts and Velcro to the good thoughts. So if you're having a bad thought, you need to think, I've just got to let that go and slip off me. And when you have a good thought, you need to have it stick with you to stay with you. The trouble is too many people do it the other way around, and no wonder they see the worst in everything on the planet all of the time.
I love that. I think that's a great way to look, because one of the things that I tell people is how you see determines how you succeed.
Yes, of
And
course.
so you have to be in charge of that mental ecosystem and question those thoughts. And most people just drift with whatever their thoughts, which are usually dictated by their mood, and they follow through with that instead of taking charge. That's brilliant. And that will certainly plan their future. Now, tell me, though, speaking of, you've given some advice for young people and, well, anybody really, but particularly in terms of young people, part of your expertise is in regards to the future of jobs. And so you've got a different take on the pessimism out there about employment. So talk to me about where the resilient jobs will be.
Well, part of my response to that question is that it depends on what we call work.
Right.
So, for example, if we're talking charity work or unpaid work, there will never be a shortage of that being needed. There are 1,000 charities you could contact right now and offer your support to them, and they could take up all your time doing them. So if we're talking that sort of work, then there will be no end of it. Work in terms of the normal cycle, the 9 to 5, I think, is nearly defunct. It won't go away completely where you have one job for life. I'll be very surprised, though, if any 10-year-old today has a single job through her or his entire life. So we're going to see a breakdown in terms of that. If you're looking for what's going to happen up ahead, I can tell you now it's going to be a tricky time for the next couple of years. There is a massive amount of not just unemployment, but underemployment on the planet.
Right.
And it's where people don't have as much work as they would like. And bluntly, there is not enough work for everyone. Technology does have influence on this. The robots are not going to take over, believe it or not, and I'll be surprised if they do, partly because if robots did all of our work, that means we're not going to make any money. Then we won't have any money to pay for the services and goods that the robots create. So it's going to be a very vicious cycle that will just go downhill. So we're still going to need people out there. The biggest hint in terms of work is this, and the trends have been clear on this for the last decade. The work where we work with other people is becoming more prevalent. So it's where we work in social professions, the education, the nursing, the support mechanisms that actually work directly with other people. It's going to be a long time before robots can do that proficiently. So if I was giving advice to young people today, I'd say, look, follow your heart anyway, because we're still going to need a lot of doctors and, people who do high level stuff like engineers. I'm not going to trust to, a robot making a plane that I'm flying in for a while yet. However, what really matters is that you focus in on people stuff. And that's why we have to show children how to build up capabilities where they know how to interact with other people. If I had my way, I'd build that into the core of parenting and education everywhere, showing them how to engage with other people, listening deeply, responding, empathizing with people, giving support whenever they can. There are a few thoughts in terms of work.
Wow, listening, responding, empathizing.
Well, if we're talking how to prepare, young people anywhere from the ages of 0 to 30 for the world up ahead, we focus in on what we call capabilities. Now, that's my one fancy word for this conversation with you. Skills aren't enough. Skills are great and they're important. A capability, though, is something that makes you more capable of coping with whatever happens up ahead. So, for example, one capability is thinking. It's your ability to control what's happening inside that beautiful brain of yours and then being able to create actions that make life better for yourself and also for others. Thinking is a capability. Another capability is empathy, or I call it a capability anyway. Empathy is where you can sense how someone else is feeling and you give them support accordingly. Another important capability, here's another fancy one for you, is called adaptive agility. Now, adaptive agility means you can adjust and you are agile to changing circumstances. So it's really important to be agile in terms of the way things can change so quickly, because in this day and age, some jobs are going out of fashion within a couple of months and then new ones are appearing out of the blue. Who would have expected that an 18-year-old could make a thriving income these days out of controlling a drone that flies around the sky? And yet there are now so many different jobs that actually focus on that, and that's going to keep going on. I try to stay aware of jobs up ahead, and I can't begin to work out what might be happening in 10 years from now with all of this. So adaptive agility is a big one.
Here's a question for you then. How do people develop adaptive ability And not be rather than be frightened, because I think our first instinct is to be overwhelmed. So
Yep.
what's something we can do to become more adaptive?
Okay, I've got a simple answer and a complex answer. The simple answer is to be a lifelong learner.
Beautiful.
You are a learning entity. You were born to learn, you will die learning, or hopefully you do. The only dilemma is that as people get older, or more chronologically gifted, as I sometimes call it, they start to lose their desire to develop new things and understand things in a different way. And by the way, that's to some degree how the brain works. From about the age of 40, it doesn't work quite as effectively as, when you were younger. All that notwithstanding, we are all going to need to be learners through a lifetime. And governments around the world are working this one out. So they're going to invest very heavily in adult learning because they know that people live healthier and longer, and they have better outcomes in all aspects of physical and mental life because they are learning new experiences all the time. So don't just sit and watch the TV, learn new things, even just reading something. I know it's obvious, but boy, it's important. And then the more complex stuff with that in terms of coping with what's up ahead is this. We need to learn how to cope with change, Trish. Change happens all the time. The trouble is some people run and hide from it. They're scared of it. They fear it. Can I tell you now, up to a point, not all, but most change is good for you. At the time, it just doesn't feel fantastic, though you can learn so much from it. So one recommendation is to understand the change process. So if I'm going on memory here, there's usually 4 or 5 steps when you have to learn something new. The first one is where you deny it. Okay, you just go, it's not for me. I don't even know why they're telling me to do this. And the second stage is when you resist it. So you realize you do have to do it and you get really annoyed about it. The third stage after a while is where you start to get, adapt to it, even though you're not happy about it. And the fourth stage is when you actually love it and you get really involved. 4 stages. Now, it's so important to be meta-aware by using perhaps Cookie or whatever the equivalent is and going, I'm in that stage. Now, how am I going to get to the next one? If I had a magic wand, it would be that every adult on the planet knew how to become aware of change process and where they were so they could do something about changing their circumstances.
Change is good for you. I love that. I love what you've just outlined, and that lifelong learning. It's that's what will keep us. It's that expectation, isn't it? That if we have an expectation that things have got to stay the same and it's unfair when they change, then we'll be stuck. But if it's a natural thing for us to say, well, things are going to change, and I am able to be adaptable, and I'm a lifelong learner, and I just keep doing that, then really we're well prepared. And for people, I want to pop in here a little commercial break, because for people who do want to learn and don't have a lot of time, there is a place called Read It For Me online. There's the link there. I am an affiliate, and it condenses all these great books down to 12 minutes, and to get the guts out of it. You can listen on audio, you can read a shorter transcript, and sometimes they even do short videos. So I've got a link there if anybody wants to find out more about that. Now, you're also an author. Now, yours is not a 12-minute book. Yours is a brilliant educational book that is helpful. And what I'd like to do is in the time that we have left, because this is just a quick one, I want to share the screen and show your website, Tony, which is tonyryan.com.au. And this book, I bought it. I didn't get a free copy. As soon as I saw Tony being interviewed on the news in the morning about this stuff, and I just went, and I just went straight on the computer and I ordered and I bought this book. It's brilliant. And it's called The Next Generation, Preparing Today's Kids for an Extraordinary Future by Tony. And it is optimistic. Hello. Thank you, Tony, that when it's not all doom and gloom, I am just so thrilled. Did you want to make a couple of comments about this book for us?
I can make a couple of comments about the sort of things you're talking about. The reality about the future is this. Yes, I am optimistic about the future because I'm optimistic about a lot of things. The reality, though, is that the future is created by whatever we do today. So my biggest concern about 2020 at the moment is too many people are looking for the worst things happening on the planet as compared to the best. And can I tell you now, there's still a lot of amazing things going on. Just search for something like good news about COVID-19 and you will see all these amazing social programs being enacted to support people. So the big one
Wow.
about that book and about everything in general is we create our future with what we do today. And I mean, that happens with every one of us in our own lives. If we stay fit and healthy, we eat nutritious food, we love deeply, we pay respect to others, I can near guarantee you're probably going to have a better life up ahead. Okay, so it's the
Wow.
same with 7.8 billion people all doing that. You know, if I had a magic wand, I'd decree that everyone on this planet for at least one day had to speak well of everything going on the planet. And I can tell you now, the day after that would probably be the best day in human existence. So we need to actually focus in on this, focus on the words we say, on the actions we take as much as possible. That's how the future gets created. You know, a fear-based hysteria is not good for us. It just isn't. You know, and there's so many books out there. I love the fact that you're promoting the learning and the reading, because bluntly, you are whatever you read and whoever you meet in your lifetime. So you need to choose carefully in terms of those things that influence who you become in your spirit and your mind and your body.
Absolutely. Wow. So we are so in sync, Tony.
Oh, I know that, Trish.
You do all the study and you've got the research to back up my opinions. So it's so good about, and that is what resilience is, because resilience is the glue that keeps us going forward to actually cope with all of these changes that are happening and have that optimistic outlook. You know, because without that, if we don't have an optimistic outlook, a realistic optimistic outlook, then we will be bunnies in the headlights and we will get cleaned up. But this way we can be prepared. And also, if we don't have hope, we will miss the opportunities that are coming along, even when they're staring us in the face, because we've got that negative mindset. So Tony Ryan, so good, futurist, presentist. What you've got to say, I would encourage everybody, visit his website, buy his book. And if you are an organisation that would like to bring a speaker in to enliven, to bring hope and positivity and future and the technology, you're interested in that, contact Tony Ryan. He's brilliant to listen to. You won't even want to pause to have a cup of tea. You'll just want to listen and drink it all in. Tony, thank you so much for your time today and for allowing me to pin you down and grab you and just go, hey, just a few minutes, quick, give us some. And it's just been wonderful. Thank you so much.
It is my honor, Trish. Thank you. As we're wrapping up, can I just point out the word everyone? Yep. I've always been fascinated by it when people say, when's everyone going to do something about issues on the planet? And yet when you break the word down, it's everyone. It's every single one of us. So it's up to each one of us to make the effort. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a Pollyanna. I'm not into the world being perfect. A lot of people are struggling on the planet right now. But we've proved through human history that we can overcome anything without exception. And we will do it again.
That's just brilliant. Thank you so much, Tony. And if you would like to get in touch with Tony, again, it is tonyryan.com.au. If you would like to have me come along and speak to your group on resilience, courage and leadership, you can contact me for workplace as well as ministry. And we will look forward to seeing everybody and presenting again next time. Thanks, Tony. Bye.
Thank you, Trish.